Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining today. My name is Fabiana Furlan. I am part of the Women in Cotton Working Group, which is an initiative of the ICA, the International Cotton Association. Today, it's the first Women in Action, a series of online events which aims to promote the work done by women within our cotton industry. Before we start, let's go quickly through the rules for today's session. Be kind to yourself and to others and aim to be the best version of yourself. Be thoughtful, responsible, and bring a positive energy to discussions. Listen with openness, curiosity, and remember to mute yourself on Zoom when you are not talking. Share stories focusing on positive outcomes, using generic descriptions and without naming names. Be prepared to think laterally or think outside the box to bring about extraordinary solutions. And acknowledge that as a woman, we can and should make a difference to everyone's life at work. Kicking off today, we are very delighted to have Marzia Lanfranchi, who is going to present to us the Transformers Foundation report that she co-authored, named The Cotton, a Case Study of Misinformation. Marzia is the Intelligence Director at the Transformers Foundation, and she's also the founder of Cotton Diaries. Marzia, I'll hand over to you from now.
Thank you so much, Fabiana, and thank you for having me here. I will share my screen for now. But before sharing the screen, I wanted, if you can turn on your camera, that would be amazing because I can see the engagement and I can ask some questions, etc. So if you can, please do so. Okay, is my screen shared? Thumbs up if it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So thanks for the introduction. I won't go any further with who I am, but I want to introduce you actually. So today we're here to talk about this report. It's called Cotton as a Case Study in Misinformation. And actually, before I start, I wanted to see the reason why I asked you to turn your camera on is because I want to see how many people in the room have already read the report. Thumbs up if you have, either with a smiley face or, there's quite a few. So thank you for the ones that spend the time to read this, because it was quite a long report, even if the letters were big, but thank you all. So for the ones that didn't, then we'll spend some time on some of the key highlights. But before I start, I want to say, let me see, my screen is a bit, okay. Let me spend, I think it's having a, it's crashing, sorry. Okay, let me go. Okay, let me introduce then, can you all see Transformers Foundation now as a title? I'm sorry. So I wanted first to introduce the wonderful foundation that gave me the opportunity to work on this report. So who is Transformers Foundation? We are the unified voice that represents the denim supply chain. And what I mean by denim supply chain is anyone from farmers to chemical suppliers, denim mills, and jeans manufacturers. And our mission is to move the needle on sustainable performance in this industry. And so a huge part of our industry is cotton, and I'm really grateful to be here today with you, because we're going to discuss one of the main challenges that we found in this industry to move the needle on sustainable performance and help suppliers, help brands, and help consumers choose environmentally sound products, create them, and source them. For the different stakeholders is, I don't know what's going on with my screen, is misinformation. And misinformation is an issue that is widely spread, not just in fashion, not just in cotton, but it's a society-wide problem. And what we focus on in this report is we tackled it from an angle of taking cotton as a case study, but keeping in mind that it's an issue that underpins every single decision that we make, whether it's what we shop at the grocery store or how we influence policy, etc. So these are some of the myths that have been widely circulated in the industry. So from fashion is the second most polluting industry to the textiles are responsible for 20% of water pollution globally, to all the myths that you probably already know around cotton. And these actually, the textile are responsible for 20% of water pollution. I wanted to point out that it was shared during the ICAC plenary meeting a couple of days ago, and it was a bit disappointing after a report that we released. But anyway, what I wanted to focus on is why is it problematic? It seems really innocent to share one of these statistics compared to misinformation around politics or around anything that has to deal with vaccine or etc. But it's problematic because without agreeing on facts, not on the solution, be careful on this, without agreeing on the facts, we cannot inform our decision in a sound way. And so we wanted to work with Transformers Foundation to provide a way of not only debunking these myths, but creating critical thinking within the fashion industry towards claims and data. And again, my screen is having, okay. So the aim of this paper and the work that we've done was exactly to do that. So train readers to become critical consumers of data and information, debunk, and here we introduce a new term. It's called pre-bunking. So it's when you work on preventing myths from arising by showing, giving context or creating exercises that people can think about with critical thinking. And the third aim of this report was to gather and share publicly the best available data that we could find on cotton, because often it's behind paywalls, so it's hard to read, it's hard to process for people that are not technical or within this space. And what we did is basically we synthesized this data. We didn't create new data. We just worked with ACAC, on statistics that we could share publicly. And then the fourth one, and the reason why I love being here today with you, is because we want to foster consensus around the data contained in the report so that outsiders of this industry, like brands, journalists, and NGOs, and even consumers or suppliers, can use this report as a go-to point, as a go-to space for data. But without, I wanted actually to hear from you on what are the biggest myths about cotton that you've heard or you're familiar with that you've been really frustrated about, because I'm sure that in the audience there's plenty of people that have seen these, and even if you share it in the chat or if you can say it out loud, I would love to hear it from you. Anybody? We can spend a couple of minutes on this. It would really help me.
I think really the water usage that also came up in the chat, and that one T-shirt uses, I think you also had it before, like 20,000 liters of water. That is definitely one that I hear a lot around brands and retail.
Yeah, is there anything else? Yeah, for sure, Claudia, this is, it's a huge issue. Organic versus conventional, organic is the best option. Yeah, Laura.
Friends come to me about concerns of the pesticide use and the runoff, the pollution runoff.
Pollution runoff, that's a good one that we haven't tackled yet. So what we did in this report is tackling exactly some of the claims, actually most of the claims that you've shared with me. And these are the ones the myths that we've vetted. So we went to cotton consumes 20,000 liters of water per kilogram of fiber, to debunking the 25% figure for Here it says the 25% of the words insecticides are used on cotton. This is the myth that we vetted, but we vetted all the declinations of it because it often comes in either insecticides or pesticides, 16, 14%, but these are all either very obsolete data or completely made up. And then the third one that we debunk is on that cotton is a water-thirsty crop. And the fourth, as Fabiana and Laura mentioned, is that organic cotton uses 91% less water than conventional. I don't think we have time to go through all of them today, but I'll show you a little bit of the framework that we've used to debunk the myths. So we rated claims on a scale because we didn't give a true or false kind of binary way of looking at this, because we wanted to build this critical thinking that goes beyond these debunking these 4 claims. So we gave a rating from red to gold when looking at a claim, where gold is the best standard, where data is peer reviewed, it's transparent about funding and methodologies, transparent about authors' affiliation, and then the red is on the opposite spectrum, which is unverified or obsolete data, which is absolutely a no, please do not use, and then orange, avoid to use, etc. But it's all in the paper, so I'll encourage you to also look at the methodology. So I want to show you an example of how we debunked, just quickly. So what we did is, based on this claim that was very widely spread and circulated across blog posts, papers, newspapers that are even very widely spread and read. So we went down to the, let's call it the rabbit hole of finding the source, the primary source for this claim. And we found out that it was coming actually from a WWF report from the 1999. And even within that report, it wasn't the 20,000 liters of water figure. It wasn't actually cited. There was a range of figures between Israel, I think, and another country, and now have to go back to it to understand, but to remember. But it didn't even, it didn't even cite this figure. However, what WWF did, which that report actually had a lot of context, and it wasn't just sharing one global average figure. But what the WWF did was that they took that figure and they placed it on with a big infographic on their website from 2013 at least to 2020. And this was the figure that was cited mostly by journals, NGOs, activists, and anybody in between, let's say. And it said 20,000 liters of water is the amount of water needed to produce 1 kilogram of cotton, equivalent to a t-shirt or a pair of jeans. So we went down this rabbit hole, and then what we did, we worked with ICAC and trying to find out the most up-to-date statistics, still global average statistics on blue water. You can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. But it's showing blue water, average blue water consumption, and green water, rainwater. And then even if we went and shared the most up-to-date statistics, we warned everybody that global averages actually can be misleading. And if you work in cotton and if you worked across geographies, and I'm sure that many of you have here, you know that it's meaningless, because from Australia to the US to even within regions in India, it changes very much. And so when we want to make informed choices, taking this global average statistic doesn't really tell us anything. So we're trying to educate people on that this narrative of using one shocking stat is not very healthy for the industry and for its progress. And on top of that, what we did is we tried to talk about the issue of using normally or sometimes how these global averages are used is to compare fiber to the other. So compare with apples, and we call, sometimes it falls under greenwashing, because it's definitely a misleading marketing way of marketing a fiber. In this case, you can see it was used, I mean, it's very tiny on the screen, but it was used to promote recycled polyester. And all we're saying is this is only causing problem shifting, because it's not gonna make any farmer use less water or have better water management system shifting to another fiber. So it's actually what we're trying to encourage people to think about, is that actually if you can learn about the local issue and the local data that is within your supply chain, you can work to improve it rather than shift to another fiber like hemp or polyester or whatever. Then another myth that we worked on was this one that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with, that organic cotton uses 91% less water than conventional. We gave it a rating of orange because it's not as bad as the previous one, but it's still, we highly recommend not to use it. And I'm not sure if anybody has done research on this, but what we found is that these data was coming from the comparison of two LCAs that couldn't be compared actually. And although the LCA of, and this was, one was the LCA of Cotton Inc. and the other one was the LCA of Textile Exchange for organic cotton. And whilst the LCA of organic cotton for Textile Exchange was critically reviewed, even though some people criticized the findings, was still, it is a credible source. But however, what they did is that they compare it with this Cotton Inc. report, the LCA, and the outcome was these savings, whether it's on water or energy or other savings. That's where it comes from this comparison. And it actually has completely two different samples. And it was advised from the LCAs, even the disclaimers, not to compare these studies, and it's not a critically reviewed comparison, let's say. I don't want to go, I can talk about this forever because it frustrates me when LCAs are compared when they shouldn't be compared, and they should just be used to highlight the hotspots. But yeah, so and brands continue to use this, and we worked with the CMA, which is the Competitive Marketing Authority of the UK, which and as per their guidelines, it does fall under greenwashing if brands still use it. Another concept, I know that there's so many concepts that we introduced in this paper, and hopefully you'll take just maybe one or two today within this presentation, but I think for me it's really important to remind people that normally how we use numbers is that because we think that numbers are neutral and they're gonna I say because I've done it in the past and I've tried not to do it now, but we try to use it as a way to objectify our position or to frame our position. But without understanding that sometimes the numbers that we use and we take are not objective. They are actually a quantification and you know, sometimes even a social and political act. Someone is making decision about what is measured, what is not, and how metrics are included or excluded. So I think it's a nice reminder every time we look at a data point, who measured it? Why did it measure it? What was left out? Okay, so I want to go through these quickly because I want to hear from all of you. But another way that we tried to debunk cotton information was to give a framework of how misinformation spread. So this is there is a pattern around how misinformation spreads, especially in the fashion sphere. So it's either through erratic copying. So it means when you take something and it drops a number and then all of a sudden it spreads, and it's like the telephone game. It becomes, every time is copied and pasted, it becomes less and less accurate. Then the other one is the credibility trap. The credibility trap is when maybe you find a data point is spread by the World Bank, and you think, if it's the World Bank, I must think that it's a credible source. However, when you go deeper into some of the reports or the data that is shared by some of these bodies, you can find it is not based on scientific findings and it doesn't have a primary source. And this is the case for the 20,000% of textile pollution in fashion statistic. Another way is the irresponsible framing. So when it's completely stripped out of context data or claims, and it's framed in a way to benefit the sharer. Mythic proportion is when something is shared so much that you start thinking that it's true. Like fashion is the second biggest polluter. It's shared so much that people started to think it must be true. And oversimplification, it speaks to itself, I think. So these are some of our suggestions on how to halt misinformation. So frame responsibly, don't erratic copying. It's quite straightforward. So it's a counteract to the framework that I shared before. Also, you're welcome to interrupt me every time, anytime, because I feel like I'm doing a monologue. If anybody has a question, please go ahead. I'm going to be another 5 minutes, I think, and then I'll open to the floor. So nobody, I think. So in the second part of our report, when we went through all the debunking, what we did is that saying, okay, now we have all this data that is the most up to date. It's not very, it's summarizing and etc. But how do we put this data into context? And we tried to fill the missing context that is often left out when data is shared around cotton. And I think it's important. It's an important reminder that there are a lot of organizations that do amazing work on information, etc. But what we try to do is fill the context gap between the technical and the simplified, so that we can get more people to understand the content of cotton, not just the technical people or the people that, like me, love going down the rabbit hole and understand and call people to understand what we're talking about. And so this is just an example of what we did. We reminded everybody that cotton and water, the way that water is used on cotton, it's into a cycle. So the water cycle that people study in primary school, we reminded people of that, because often there was an assumption that the water that was used on cotton was then lost. And so we tried, additionally to that, we tried to shift the narrative around, okay, it's good to understand the water usage, but what's better, it's to understand the water impact. So the impact of that water use. Is it in a water stress region? Is the water being polluted? Is it available for other uses? So we tried to really shift the common narrative that if cotton uses 20,000 liters of water, it must be bad. and try to give a more nuanced story to this. And we did this with water, but we did this with pesticide, which was definitely much harder to make it digestible as a topic. And then this is something that I really am passionate about, and we've included a social element to it, because often people talk about cotton from only an environmental perspective. I say people because in the fashion industry and in the denim industry, when they don't have a direct relationship with farmers, they often forget the social impact of a fiber that is grown, and it touches 22 million livelihoods, if not more. So we try to also give a little bit of nuanced narratives around the social impact on cotton. I wish I had more time to do that, and I wish we had more data. So on all these water, pesticides, and social, we shared all the best available data that we could find in the public domain. It was really hard on the pesticide, just as a reminder, and then I'm going to talk about it more. But so just the 5 tips on how to halt misinformation. We advise everybody to take misinformation seriously. It's not innocent when you spread misinformation and shocking statistics. We need to be critical consumers of data. We need to only use the best and most recent data available. I'm not saying to you because I don't know what you do, but a lot of people pick the outdated data because it best suits their narrative. Don't do that. Don't problem shift. And one important one, which we've already seen the results of, is take ownership of mistakes. You've shared a bad statistic, you shared misinformation, cross it, share it with the public. I've made a mistake. And we've done it with an NGO. We collaborated on doing this, and we're doing it with some brands. So it's a really positive outcome for this report already. And today I want to talk to you, since we have time, on what are some actions that we can take collectively to first to halt misinformation in this industry, but second also to have more access to good data so that we can inform our decisions better. And today I'm really grateful to show you our 6 call to actions, because I think there's no better group than the one here today. So what we're doing with Transformers Foundation is we call all cotton trade organizations. We're working with this on this with ICAC as well to endorse our findings. So there is a go-to place for data on cotton that we can build on. So we committed with ICAC to a yearly update of this report, at least on the data part, and we wanna include more information. So we encourage everybody to send information and new data to us if you have. And third action is there is an urgent need for transparency. There's a lot of opaque and gaps out there. There's a lot of data behind paywalls. And I was a bit upset during this research that there's no more out there. And I would urge, if you do have data that you can either partially or in total share with the public, I think we would drive also more understanding around these issues. And then the fourth, it's super important, I think. And the reason why I said before, bear in mind, pesticide section, on the data is almost blank. We only have data that is in the public domain about sales. And sales data don't tell you anything about application data. They don't tell you anything about pests. They don't tell you anything about pesticide poisoning instances. So I think we need to work together to fill these gaps, or to make these data public, because we know from our research that market research centers have this data. It's very much inaccessible for most companies. I think if we don't have that transparency, we've proven that people start to think that there must be something that we're hiding. And I think that's a reason also to work on more transparency. And then the fifth one is seek guidance from technical experts. That's the reason why I may reach out to some of you, because I'm a generalist. Some of you may be very technical. So we encourage everybody to seek technical expertise instead of just sharing data without understanding. And then we would love, and this is maybe an endeavor that we can take collaboratively, or some of you are already undertaking, an industry cotton and fashion fact checker. So if there is a misinformation out there, then there is a body, or there's a kind of a mechanism for making people accountable for spreading misinformation. And before I give the floor to you, I want to go back again to the first point, because what we're doing with Transformers Foundation is that we're going to reach out to probably some of you, or most of you actually, and for endorsements. And it's endorsements on these call to actions, and actually to work with us on having better and more data on cotton. And you can, if you're interested in this, you can definitely email me directly at this email, or if you just want to give Kim, or I don't know, Kim, if that's possible, give your interest and with your email address, and I can reach out to you. It would be a great help. But yeah,
I'll to share your email address and contact information with everyone's here today if they have any questions.
Yeah,
if they can get a hold of you directly.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to leave you with these questions. What are some of the actions that we can take collectively? And is there anybody that has ideas on our 6 call to actions, feedback on our paper? Yeah, the floor is yours. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marzia. It's very eye-opening. To say the least, it's very eye-opening. The more we dig into it, the more we understand that we need to be more critical in terms of the information that we get, the data that we read here and there. Everybody wants to be good-looking pictures, so we need to be very critical in terms of what people and companies are claiming. And for me, I think one of the highlights is actually checking the source. Go to the primary source of the information. That's very critical. And then we hear different claims and data, but we need to understand who is the source, the primary source. I think that is something very relevant. And also to take in consideration that there is regional realities. You cannot compare apples to bananas. So everyone wants a simple story to tell, or wants to make it simple, but sometimes it's not as simple as that. So I think that's something very interesting that I learned from your report. So congratulations, it was very eye-opening for me.
Thanks, Fabiana. That's a very good tip. Yeah, go to the primary source and understand why they share that type of information. I think, Michael, right? You have...
Yeah. Just a quick question. So what are the stories you've not yet told that you want to tell? You've talked about the water cycle and pesticides and the social impact of cotton. What are the stories you've not yet told that you may need help on from the broader industry?
I think that it's probably one of the reasons why we haven't tackled it is because it's a bit new and complex. It's cotton in the carbon sequestration conversation, because the data doesn't seem to be there, or seems to be very debated. And I think that's definitely one that we could all look into, because the regenerative agriculture conversation is very much, they're top of the list of brands, but I'm not sure how many brands understand the science behind it. So, and I definitely struggle, and I don't know if there's any scientists here that could help us on that, or Michael, if you have some leads. I think it would be a very good topic to tackle. For now, I think we're looking at least keeping the water and pesticides, and especially I think we're looking to expand on the social metrics, which are not harmonized across the sector. There's no like a green water footprint equivalent for social, but maybe some more metrics on social, it would be really helpful. Because at the moment, what we have is not only numbers of farmers and very basic data. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I'd say on carbon right now is it may still be slightly too premature. I mean, I work in the physical supply chain, but I think it's coming. You have a next iteration of the International Maritime Organization looking at reduction in greenhouse gas fuels and emissions globally that comes around in 2023. I think some ocean carriers are working on not only carbon offset, but green fuel. And so, I mean, it's coming. I think it may not necessarily be where you need it to be yet to tell a complete story, right? To your other points about data, lack of transparency, but I think it's definitely, I think it's coming, and we can figure out how to coordinate across the industry with parties that are involved in this aspect of research and analysis, because it's ultimately important through all the way to the end consumer, right? For our industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that was raised during this morning presentation with the Aussies, there's a need to understand also the energy source. So like usually when fibers are compared, and this I think I'm paraphrasing what I've heard from this morning. So I hope I'm giving it justice, but there's often these, the boundaries are not stretched enough to understand the energy source that was used to produce, for instance, man-made fibers, while it's the energy source for cotton is scrutinized. So I think maybe some clarity on that would be really useful. Is there anyone else?
Miguel is mentioning on the chat about cotton standards and protocols.
Yeah, big subjects, big confusions around them. For sure, I'm gonna note them. By the way, Cotton, Miguel is my colleague at Transformers Foundation.
Patricia?
Hi, thank you. I was curious to know if you've been looking at all at labor conditions, looking at, how many, what the claims are in regards to impact on people, on farmers, as well as providing information on, how many farmers the cotton industry supports, how many workers, how many livelihoods. So more of the decent work components, as well as, I guess, economic impacts on farmers and workers.
So the statistics component, we worked on ICAC statistics. So we have numbers of farmers. We haven't agreed, because they have a cotton data book that they release annually. It's 500 pages long. And what we did is we just extracted the pieces of information that were the most interesting, we thought, for our industry. And so we extracted the numbers of farmers, but there's also data around extension services, number of people that are involved in extension services, and number of research centers, etc. So this is all data that ICAC has, and we could probably work with them to share that. The issue that we had on farmers and farmers' numbers, there's you've probably seen or used that 350 million livelihoods depend on cotton, or 250, and then however the ICAC statistics shows that 22 million farmers are cotton farmers. But it's very tricky to find out the numbers, because some workers are seasonals. In some regions they may report seasonal workers as cotton farmers. In some others they don't. What includes is the wife of a cotton farmer in Burkina Faso in a smallholder setting included in the in the cotton farmer number. So these are all, I think, these are statistics, and I think we need to accept that. And it's super hard to get a straight number. Keshav Kranti, Dr. Keshav Kranti, who's the head of technical at ICAC, used to laugh because they get a 0.5% sometimes, and it's like, who's the half person? So this is just to say that I think it's very complex on this, but on the decent working conditions, etc. This is what I was saying to Michael. I think we still have huge gaps. I know that I'm gonna call out, I think there's Haley here from BCI, or maybe there was.
I'm here, hi.
Sorry to call BCI out, but for instance, they have some insight and data. It's not publicly available yet. I encourage them to make it publicly available if they have some. A lot of other standards have some of these insights, which are not shared publicly. So that's the point on transparency that we need to work on. Patricia, I know that you're from the RSN network, right? And probably you have some data, and I think it would be amazing to share some of that if you do have that, or highlight it as a gap that we need to fill within this industry.
Yeah, I don't have data. I look to others to provide data.
I just shared in the chat, we just published our first impact report, which is, I think, quite an interactive read as well. So if this has piqued anyone's interest, then feel free to head over to the link I've just shared if you want to see what we've published and how. And yeah, always open to feedback and questions from anyone.
Great, thank you.
Lily, thank you. I think I've glanced at this and I didn't pick it up yet. So thanks for sharing again. It's great. Claudia?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, it's I really love your report, and I think it's really great to tackle existing myth and then show, try to show a more correct view on things, because it's different than just putting out another view without, relating to what's in the market already. But what I'm thinking about is, I mean, it's one thing to have the right, correct information within the industry, but then I think the next step, it is important to reach the consumers with the correct data. And is that, I mean, we don't have a central, in that sense, marketing organization for cotton, but would the way to communicate this to the consumers be through retail and brands? Would that be, in your opinion, be the right way to try and get the correct data out to the people?
I think it's one way, and another way is educating NGOs and advocates. Another way is educating media. So the approach that we take with Transformers, we don't have yet. We wish to have in the future a consumer facing body within, or like we want to be more influencer in the consumer space, let's say, but we are not there yet. So the route that we took is that if we reach out to the media and say, look, these are the call to action for media. So we have call to actions for and suggestions for each of the stakeholders that I think they are more directly affected. We have call to best practice advice also for citizens and consumers, but it's only going to be a bunch of them that's going to read them. But the most powerful thing that we can do is that if we train these journalists and the media that puts information out there for the public, as well as brands, as well as NGOs and advocates, and so that we can reach some consumers at least. Through their report, I'm happy that it was covered by Forbes in a series of 4 articles. So the Forbes is read not by industry only, and it was covered. It's funny because I don't know how many of you have TikTok. I don't, but it was also picked up by some sustainability TikTok influencers, which was quite a proud moment for me. Because I've never thought we could reach, even if it was a couple, it was good. I think it's definitely a joint effort, kind of keep pushing for these players to share good information. And it's not because sometimes what I've seen, and I say it very honestly, in the cotton industry space, it sounds like propaganda when we are defending cotton. It shouldn't sound like propaganda. It should sound like we're sharing facts and to then make informed decision. And I think this is something that it's been probably an approach that worked in the past, but it's by defending and attacking, it's not, I think it's not the best approach. So, and sadly, some organizations have that approach, or they haven't shifted yet to a more, I don't know, honest marketing approach. Fabiana, sorry.
Marzia, one question. How do you see this evolving along the future, in the coming future? The fact that some organizations or some companies or even some people publish wrong information or accusations, misleading information. Do you see this evolving to some kind of legal responsibility as you are a journalist?
I'm not a journalist. I wish, I think. But thanks. I think it's a very good question. And there are, and this is training that we've been developing for brands. We are looking at the CMA, so the Competitive Marketing Authority of the UK, the one that I mentioned before, it's a Consumer Protection Authority, and they released the guidance in the UK for anti-greenwashing or environmental claims. And it's still like early stages to say, but legislation is moving towards tackling greenwashing. So if misinformation is used as a competitive advantage or a marketing, so like if these claims are used as a marketing tool I think we've defined misinformation, greenwashing as also is a disinformation that misleads the public to a competitive advantage that doesn't exist. So comparing a product or a service to another without a fair comparison. So if that is the case, I think there's going to be more coming on the legislation front. In France, it's already pretty strong, the consumer protection mechanism, let's say, but it's not legally, it doesn't have a legal implication. It has only a reputational implication, reputational risk. In the UK, there's this. In the US, the Federal Trade Commission is reviewing the Green Guide in 2022, so this upcoming year. So that's on the greenwashing end. And what we would love to see is actually that industry-wide fact checker. So it would be a small thing that we could contribute to the industry, so that we can have better information out there and clear the noise, because I think we spend more time talking about what's true and what's not, and and not actually acting, because we're so confused about where the reality lies. I hope that answers your question, Fabiana, but it's yeah, it's an interesting one to watch, this one, because I think there's very little accountability for people that spread misinformation.
And as you said in the beginning, it's not only a case of cotton, but we do have that issue with all the aspects in our social lives, with political topics. So it's, as social media is changing our daily lives, we didn't have this sort of problems 10 years ago, but we do have now. So yeah.
Yeah, we found that social media is definitely an accelerator of misinformation, but actually misinformation in general for society comes from television. It's funny enough, mostly. And then it's spread across social media, but it's like, it's accelerated more than in the past, for sure. But in just on vaccines and politics, there's fact checkers bodies, so like Snoops and others that operate as fact checkers for these important issues. But fashion is always thought, you know, yeah, it's frivolous, it's superficial, so don't take it seriously. And so they're not covering these as an issue. And I think we have a responsibility as an industry to make that mechanism work also for our industry. And it's not about pointing fingers, it's about working together to have a stronger data set, a stronger understanding of what the truth is.
Exactly. And I think with the evolution of technology, blockchains, traceability, I think the industry is getting more connected, because our supply chain is a long supply chain from the grower and to the consumer. There are so many players on the way. But I think technology definitely will help us going forward to make this a shorter supply chain.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
I think nobody else. I thought there was something in the chat from Hailing. Do you have a recommendation for how we can refute claims without being defensive? Sorry if this is already on the report, but it would be great to see misinformation countered with robust data. Okay, thank you, Eli. I already answered. Yeah, it was the NGO that we worked with on, I don't know if that tags along this question, but it was so nice to see someone saying, we've made a mistake and we want to improve. And actually another NGO has done an internal kind of training on fact checking for their staff. And they've increased the amount of hours that writers can spend on blog posts so that they have the time to properly do that. And we've also seen another small but very influential brand doing that within their marketing team. So it's very nice to see little changes happening.
Exactly.
So I think really the report is a wonderful first step, because I mean, cotton is all of our futures, And really, at the end of the day, it's man-made fibers versus cotton. And with the consumers these days and their awareness around the environmental impact that everything is happening, having this misinformation out there, it's all of our responsibility to correct this where we find it. And I do agree that some sort of industry fact-checking program would just be suitable for all of us. I just have one place to go, that when we do hear of misinformation, and I'm sure I'm not the only ones who have friends outside the industry that come to you with, you know, I heard this, is that really true about cotton? That we would have a place to lead not just our friends, family, but all consumers to find what the accurate information is, because at the end of the day, this is our livelihoods.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I think we are heading to the end. Marzia, we want to thank you very much for being with us today. It was so eye-opening. It was great to have you here. Thank you so much for your time and congratulations for your work. I think this is a kind of, as Kim said, first step for improving the overall information around cotton in our supply chain. So thank you very much, Marzia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.